So Trump believes that a trade deficit is bad. And
the deficit is that money is going out.
Yeah.
And not that a good is coming in for the money going out.
Yeah, no, he's not looking at the good coming in and that Americans want it.
Yeah.
He sees hundreds of millions of dollars, US dollars, going out to another country, and he feels like that's wrong and he's ripped off. That's one part of it. It's not the only even motivation behind it, because other people are helping make this decision.
Yeah.
Other people are for this. It's because they want to like reshore manufacturing jobs and stuff like that, because some of them are like Christian nationalist crazy people who think that like that's the way to American progress and to how to make young American men feel good.
Right.
Yeah, make it in America, but that's not going to happen. That's not how the world works anymore.
No.
That takes years and years and years of investment as well. So
that's
in between time is fucking rough, which is why just tariff wars are stupid. Like, because like we started. So the thing is, it is advantageous that the US dollar gets lots of stuff for cheaper than if they were to make it themselves. Like it's taking advantage of other countries usually. That's the corporate relationship. That's definitely something that is not in the mainstream way of thinking of the economy, but it is the advantageous position to have a trade deficit. Even mainstream economists think of the U.S. having a trade deficit as a positive position that the U.S. is in.
Because there is a trade deficit. Like they're actually in a... Can you explain that?
I'm not sure if I could say everything they think on it.
Just that thing that you just said.
Right. But you're asking like, why do they think it's positive? The mainstream economists.
You said something about the U.S. dollar.
It's an advantageous position.
Yes.
This is what I mean. I'm not entirely clear, but I know that in general, people who are against free trade, this is getting complicated now.
That's okay.
And people who are for free trade, generally capitalists like free trade. They're like corporations and stuff take advantage of those cheaper prices, cheaper labor elsewhere.
Yeah.
So from a capitalist perspective, free trade is good. The trade deficit is fine because it means their corporation, especially the people who are like earning money on corporations, so CEOs and all the shareholders, are all benefiting by having this megacorp that has a factory somewhere else that people in the US will pay big margins on because they got it manufactured elsewhere. That's true for American companies. That's true for companies elsewhere. It's like still like kind of a rich versus poor thing. So like those people at the top are pro this.
So there are different narratives as to why this is important to different people at the top, or like how different people at the top are pushing this.
Well, because the thing is, the people on Trump's side now seem to have shot themselves in the foot because they're the ones who like actually have money. They're the ones who I'm like, you aren't you like more savvy than this? I thought. But the thing is, I don't know why all of the reasons. So some of it's political, like the Christian nationalist type of thing. We don't want products made elsewhere. We don't want to pay those people to make stuff. But then there's also, we want good American jobs. So we reshore them or whatever. But Americans don't want to make t-shirts for 2 cents an hour. But that we should stop. We should stop buying that. So I don't mind. But
Americans aren't going to be able to afford the labor that Americans
would need to survive to make that type of stuff, which is why it's exploitative.
Exactly. Do you think that there's any intelligence behind it?
Well, yes, because they have their own like perspectives where there's enough stuff that's true to them. That's why they're doing this. Exactly. So I do think it's not just like a totally insane plan. It's totally insane if you know how the world works. But I would say a lot of politicians and wealthy people especially don't really know how the world works. They know what works in their little bubble.
Which is also a pretty powerful bubble.
It's a very powerful bubble, exactly. Yeah. But here's another thing. Mainstream economists, in the opinions of the people that I read, the heterodox economists, like people coming from a more socialist or anarchist perspective and stuff, have been pointing out for years, even this guy, Robert Skidelsky, who's like a mainstream economist in the UK. The mainstream economist notion of how everything runs is not very well researched and following the data. It's actually kind of wrong a bunch of the time. And they act like they know what they're doing because they're all in agreement with each other. And they don't like listening to things that contradict what they have to say.
It's a belief system.
It's a bit of a belief system. Yeah. It's like it's a social science because the economy is how people interact with each other. But they boil it all down to math and numbers only. But humans are not rational actors who will do.
Those are the blind spots.
These are major blind spots, especially to people who have grown up in this type of economy, economic academia. Like, look, this way of looking at it, that's what they believe, and it fits their wealthy worldview as well.
Yeah.
Like, for the most part.
Yeah.
And, we're all not super willing to look at stuff that contradicts our strongly held worldviews.
Especially if all your friends believe it.
And academia and mainstream media agrees with it.
Yeah.
It's a very...
Oh.
This is why it's so exciting to me, actually. I was telling you about how I was excited about
economic stuff. I did that.
Yeah. So, like, the heterodox people are like Steve Mann at Strange Matters magazine, I think. He and other people are talking about how this sense of how inflation works and how governments can try to influence inflation to not have it go crazy high for people. In the US, they like to think that the mainstream economists and the Fed and stuff like to think that their interest rates that they get to set can help bring inflation up or down. They know it's tricky. They know it doesn't always work the way that you expect, and there's other factors that you find out later, but they use this thing called the Phillips curve, and that's been around, I think, since the 80s, but I might be wrong. When it was accurate for one recession or something like this, and since then I don't think it has been very accurate, and there's much more accurate data of stuff out there. So even if you give it some credit in some more areas than just this one thing, because maybe I'm missing some, overall they've updated it with different math to make it work on different data, which you should just throw your model out. If it doesn't work enough times,
right?
If it doesn't actually tell the story. And with these people's blind spots, I'm not surprised. And this writer, David Graeber, who I've been talking about for ages, he talks about how money has kind of two styles of existing in our conscious and in our systems and stuff. And one of them is it's actually attached to being gold or some mint, some physical thing.
Yeah.
Or it's more thought of and used as a credit, and basically, as he's saying, a social agreement between people. We socially agree that we will honor this, an IOU. And in some cases, you might have heard of, there's some paper money that got thought of that way, and then that turned into paper money type of thing. So you've even heard of money has acted like a credit and a social agreement that this will be honored. Versus in some eras, so this is what Graeber is saying, that there's some eras that actually money becomes more thought of as a representation of a physical thing elsewhere that can be backed up by that gold or whatever it is. And he points out that in a lot of these eras of money being more attached in the psyche, but as well as how people use it, attached to a physical thing, is more often a time of war and slavery and standing armies trying to enforce rules on colonialism and stuff and similar bad things.
Historically.
Yeah. And then he goes into people under Spanish and Portuguese attack in South America, I guess. And I can't remember all those details. That was fascinating to learn about. I don't really know what all that means exactly, but I find that really interesting.
Yeah.
And kind of
modalities.
Graeber's point about all this is that because he writes a small essay called Against Economics, which references the whole inflation thing not being well understood, nor actually a very good way to try to deal with how the economy works. And mainstream economists not even knowing that they're continue to not to try to explain all of his essay. He talks about the political people like Republicans trying to go for hard money policies, and some of it is...
What is a hard money policy?
I think this is austerity measures, which you've maybe heard of. It's when a government needs to not spend, they do huge budget cuts and raise taxes and stuff.
We gotta buckle down.
Things are tough. Yeah, we gotta buckle down. We gotta what else happens in it? What else goes into austerity measures and hard money policies? But it's not high taxes on the wealthy either. It's mostly just cutting programs.
Is it when a state or a country is in...
Oh, it's typically when it's in debt.
Financial, yeah.
Yeah, when it's in financial difficulty.
Post-war as well?
Yes, sometimes I think so.
Everybody gets this amount of money and you can get...
I think Thatcher did it at the same time as Reagan. No, she was in the 80s, wasn't she? The 70s? I can't remember.
Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah.
70s.
Okay. You could just go to her monetary policy, actually, even, and find out about it better from what...
80s. So 79 to 90. Thatcher era money policy.
Or I just thought if you want Wikipedia shit, it might be in there.
Thatcher's economic policies. Let's let AI sum it up, shall we? Margaret Thatcher's monetary policy was heavily influenced by monetarism, an economic theory that emphasizes controlling the money supply to manage inflation.
It's patently false. There's no data that backs any of that up. But they go through, like, conservatives especially, but like in different eras, including like back to the medieval ages, they sometimes try to do this policy and it doesn't work, and then they abandon it, and then
they move on. So the idea behind it is we have to be austere so that things don't become more expensive. I don't understand.
I can't even explain why they think that this would work, but they
but is that the essence of it?
I think the essence of it is there's this idea that inflation is caused by the government printing money. And there's some mechanism that they think then follows from that, and I can't remember that right now. It's probably easy to find.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. It doesn't make sense. Monetarism and printing money does not make prices go up.
Because there's more money.
It could fuck with things. It could make prices go up. But doing that itself has literally not raised prices in economies before. So there's data that says when this place printed money, it didn't make prices go up. And so eventually they, like, more like economists who don't go so hard into this monetarism, they are like, we'll be sensible about it, and yeah, we won't print money like there's a money tree or whatever. Like Theresa May said that during like Brexit management stuff.
It says Thatcher believed that inflation was caused by an excess of money in the economy. So like there's too much flying around, and that's wild.
I mean, actually, see if they explain it even more, because hopefully...
and sought to control it through strict monetary policies. In the early 1980s, Thatcher implemented a policy of monetarism which involved targeting the money supply to reduce inflation. This policy included higher taxes and spending cuts, leading to a significant reduction in inflation rates, allegedly. However, the link between the money supply and inflation proved to be unreliable, and by 1984, money supply targets had effectively been abandoned. So it took 4 years for them to be like, no.
Well, it takes time for the policy to work through the economy, so I'm not surprised. But
I mean, 4 years feels like a short amount of time.
Oh, yes, that's true. To abandon your policy? Yeah, that's very true. We see politicians do stuff wrong for 20 years, normally. Or more.
Exactly.
Their whole careers.
But Thatcher's monetarist policies were also characterized by a belief in free markets and a reduction in state intervention in the economy.
Wait, say it again?
Thatcher's monetarist policies were also characterized by a belief in free markets and a reduction in state intervention in the economy. This included the privatization of key public sector industries and deregulation of financial services.
It's like classic conservative stuff, yeah.
But the government was incredibly involved in budget cuts and...
Oh, but it means, like, you can cut the government huge institution and let it be private. So it's a big influential step, but it's smaller government because you cut it and made it private. Even though it's really funny, mostly capitalists are the ones who raise prices and make things go crazy expensive. Inefficiency, this is part of it, I guess. So these types of conservatives think that government is inefficient, and that's part of what makes things bad when government runs it and makes things expensive or the wrong price. And they think that there's an equilibrium that a price will come to, because like that's the magic of the free market.
Of money.
Yeah. Just like
it'll all balance out.
Whatever it's supposed to cost, people will find the price, even though like we get lied to on what things ought to cost, or we just I buy a $12 umbrella when it's raining. We buy stuff based on when we need it and the urgency in it. There's like lots of huge factors in how we buy things. Anyway, private entities will charge whatever they can for sure. Governments at least could be transparent and be like, well, we will only set this to a certain price or whatever, which is why like government-run healthcare is less atrocious than the exploitative system of private healthcare in the U.S. because like they know what they can get away with because healthcare is urgent, and they think it works well this way, even though it hurts most people, it hurts everyone. Like, how many expensive things do you think, like expensive surgeries do you think like rich people have been like, wow, that was a lot, but it was worth it. And they didn't blink an eye because it wasn't necessary surgery, but it was hundreds of thousands of dollars or something like that. It's like, they also got ripped off. It didn't need to cost all that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy for healthcare workers to be paid well. I want everyone to be paid well, and I would rather just no one's being paid. I'll just got our services taken care of. But then there's wealthy people couldn't rule over us, so. Is there more that you're...
No. It's a lot to get your head around.
Do you have any more questions about the current crash and the tariffs and stuff?
I do. Actually, no, I don't. I asked the question.
Is there any intelligence
Yeah,
behind
is
it?
there any intelligence?
Oh, I
behind
did
it?
want to say, I guess, more about it. That, like, because of what I just said about further evidence that economists don't actually have a great understanding of how things work, these people who are currently trying to do what the Trump administration is doing, they are basing their ideas at least on this, which has not a great basis in reality. So it's like several steps removed, I would say, from like what just a common sense even person who like understands well enough how everything runs and how it affects. Yeah, they're like believing this religion, but then they also have their weird fascist thing on top of it. You know,
like can you afford to believe in a religion when you already?
Well, I just mean the economic religion thing.
Yeah, no, I know.
Oh, can you
afford to be that delusional if your actions are so impactful and you can kind of determine how things go most of the time? You can, right?
But do any of us understand when we're in a propaganda bubble? Like, I listen to good reporters who talk about economic stuff, and they don't point any of the stuff I've talked about. They will report on the statistics that are happening, and they have some political opinion, but they don't really. But mostly, they don't say it because that's journalism to them. Is like to not neutrality type of stuff. I mean, they will probably right now. I haven't listened to them this week, but they were probably insulting the idiocy of trade wars. But they'll be very light-handed about it. I would guess they're saying something like, "This is why you don't want a trade war," rather than these people have no idea what they're doing and they think this, but they really are destroying XYZ. Because to say they're destroying XYZ would be predictive. And that's like having a bias and an editorial. But I don't think that real journalists, I think that this is the thing, the religion thing.
Yeah.
Their religion is that what the economic stuff I was talking about, some of the stuff that's still inaccurate, they believe is true and accurate. Even these like good reporters who I like listening to on some stuff, they have this religion too. They don't see it the way that David Graeber sees it. They may have even read his book Debt, and like other important books like this, but they still have a lot of belief in what mainstream economists say. And like I've listened to them for a year saying like, why aren't American consumers happier about the economy? All the numbers are good. Rather than their lives are not very good overall. Everyone's stressed. Their healthcare isn't covering what they need it to. Their friends and community are in debt in whatever ways. There's like lots of factors that have data attached, but it's not the ones that the mainstream economists say is a good economy. So they'll update me on the fact that there's like a car loan bubble for the last 10 years or something like this, like just more and more debt for people who probably can't pay it back. And once things finally hit a snag, they'll default on all those car loans. And then same thing as 2008 might happen. It's not guaranteed, but like it sure seems like it could go in that direction because like that things are worse in the US without ever
spending time there.
Yeah. You don't have to figure out healthcare there and
talking about friends.
Yeah. So like the first big trip up that happens, and like when companies are hollowed out for shareholder value, they'll just be like, oh, we got to get our money out, going bankrupt, not going to pay all those wages we owe or whatever else. And then it's just like, that's just economics. That's just the market crashing.
It's just the roll of the dice.
We didn't see it coming, even though like we reported on it. We just didn't stop the people who allow any of this to happen. They make commentary, but they don't say this should be illegal.
Which is in a way its own fallacy.
Yeah.
Do you want to move to the kitchen? I'll do dishes.
Sure, thank you.